Hello, folks. This is the Chad Factor. We're about to do a reaction video to the Young Turks talking about Roy Moore. Let's see what they have to say.
Republican Senate candidate Roy Moore was an embarrassment for the GOP since he won the primary, somewhat surprisingly. And all of that was before it was revealed that he apparently had a number of relationships with underage girls back in the late 70s
With no proof
and early
that
80s.
what you're saying,
and
but go ahead.
that has caused a number of prominent Republicans to denounce Moore or sort of denounce him while leaving a lot of wiggle room, or quickly walk away from the person asking the question. So that you add all that up, and it's a bad situation for the GOP. But we want to give you the details of what was revealed by the Washington Post today. So it turns out that back when he was a judge, there was a 14-year-old girl, Leigh Korfman, that was sitting outside of her mother, outside of a courthouse, because a custody hearing was going on, which is great context for this. He approaches the mom and the daughter and says that the mom can go inside to deal with the legal stuff and he will stay outside with the child, which is very nice of him. Unfortunately, he had an ulterior motive. Alone with Leigh, Moore chatted her up and asked for her phone number. Days later, he picked her up around the corner from her house, drove her around 30. I noticed that she was a...
So before we keep going, we're already a minute and 13 minutes. So let's see what this is a thing called the Liberty Conservative. And it says, in a disgusting but not unexpected display of dirty tricks, 4 women have came forward to lob unsubstantiated charges on sexual impropriety against Judge Roy Moore in the days leading up to the Alabama U.S. Senate primary election. Moore, a staunch Christian conservative who handily beat his establishment opponent Luther Strange in the primary back in September, was accused today by 4 women of sexual misconduct in a Washington Post report, which one article accusation coming from a woman claims she was 14 years old at the time Moore allegedly accosted her. Moore has came out with a full-breaded denullification of these accusations, which he calls the most vicious and nasty round of attacks that he has ever faced. We are in the midst of a spiritual battle with those who want to silence our message. The forces of evil will lie, cheat, steal, and even inflict physical harm. If they believe it will silence and shut up Christian conservatives like you and me, Moore said in a post released on his official Facebook account. Moore's campaign issued a press conference offering additional ammunition against the smear merchants desperately trying to sink his moronic campaign. So let's keep going with the Young Turds.
Around the corner from her house, not at her house. That's interesting that's how we set that up. Drove her about 30 minutes to his home in the woods, told her how pretty she was, and kissed her. On a second visit, she says, he took off her shirt and pants and removed his clothes. He touched her over her bra and underpants, she says, and guided her hand to touch him over his underwear. She was quoted by the Washington Post as saying, I wanted it over with, I wanted out. Please just get this over with. Whatever this is, just get it over. And so she asked to be taken home, and he took her home at that point. Now, 2 of her childhood friends say that she told them back at the time that she was seeing an older man. One says that at the time she identified him as Moore. So this is not, just looking back 30 plus years. She had been talking to people about this, including to her mother, inside of 10 years of it happening. Now, there are 3 other women interviewed by the Post that say that Moore pursued them when they were between the ages of 16 and 18. Wendy Miller says she was 14 and working as a Santa's helper at a mall.
Okay.
That's just terrible. When Moore first approached her, thankfully he waited 2 years before he started asking her out on dates. And there was another 17-year-old that he spoke to in her high school. So he knew exactly how old she was because she was still in high school at that point. Understand that he was in his 30s when all of these situations were going on. Now, with those 2 women, apparently it didn't go beyond kissing.
All allegations, no
but there was an
proof.
18-year-old
No DNA
cheerleader
evidence,
that says
no
that Moore
witnesses.
took her
Keep
out on
going.
dates that included bottles of wine when she was not of legal age to drink the wine. And so this adds up to a problem for him because there apparently is a pattern of behavior where he was targeting women as young as 14 for
With
dates.
no proof. You have no
Malls and
proof.
high schools.
Malls and high schools looking for people working with Santas. That's a pretty dark situation. Now
Let's
he
see
did
what you gotta
respond.
say.
His campaign responds saying these allegations are completely false and are a desperate political attack by the National Democrat Party and the Washington Post on this campaign. Now, I don't know about all of the women, but Korfman, the 14-year-old in the story, says that she has voted for the Republican in the last 3 presidential elections. She voted for Donald Trump, and apparently none of the women have been involved in any way in terms of donations or anything with this race. So the idea that they are just hacks trying to help the campaign is not just offensive in the normal way that these sorts of allegations
Actually,
are.
one of the women was said to be of Hillary Clinton.
She's a Donald Trump supporter that he apparently tried to seduce while she
and
was 14 years
assigned
old.
for Hillary Clinton
harassers,
for sign
abusers,
language.
In this case, potential pedophiles. They don't really fall within one party or another, and their victims don't always fall within one party or another. I'm sure when he was cruising the malls in the high schools back in the 70s, he wasn't going, is this person gonna be a future Republican before I harass and maybe try to seduce her? And I mean, there was the 18-year-old that they gave wine to. I'm not sure if that went to every one of his targets. But so it's a shame that you even have to say, hey, so just to point out, you guys, this victim of this pedophile.
Let's go somewhere with this, people. We're gonna finish the video, but let's go. Let's look up Roy Moore, shall we? Let's look up this. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to go into an unbiased source. Okay, so let's go to this. One of Roy Moore's accusers worked as an interpreter for Hillary Clinton. Interpreter, that's what I meant by interpreter. One of the women who said that Senate candidate Roy Moore pursued her while she was in high school worked for Hillary Clinton's campaign, a sign language interpreter, according to videos and documents posted online. Deborah Wasserman Gasson, owner of the interpreting company Signs of Excellence, provided services for the Clintons during her 2016 campaign, as well as working with former Democratic Vice President Joe Biden during her events. Photos posted to her company's social media site showed her providing sign language service for Senator Patrick Murphy and Senator Bill Nelson, both Florida Democrats. You're not going to call this out, are you, young turds? Here's another photo. Now, she told the Washington Post that she was 17 in 1981 when Moore, then a 34-year-old assistant district attorney in Alameda County, spoke to her in high school civics class and asked her on a date shortly after. 2 other women said Moore pursued them, and when they were in their teens, while another, Leah Carson, said she had been sexually encountered with Moore when she was 14, he was 32. Gasser told the Post she and Moore dated for 2 or 3 months, but only shared kisses. Okay, so this is the picture right here with Joe Biden. This is one of the women who did it. So it's one of the women who's already did it. Who do you think else has done something? But let's continue watching this crappy video.
This potential pedophile voted for Trump, didn't care about all the things that was coming out about him during the election, has voted for Republicans in the past, so that the attack on her won't be, oh, look at this, just a lying dim. That's all they're ever doing, trying to get us and take us down. Yeah. It happens from people of any political stripe and of people to political alienated.
Yeah, and that was, obviously that was to refute his general argument, which was that it's politically motivated, and of course he kept just throwing that up. It's politically motivated, and that's going to be the size that fits all on this issue. It's interesting also to see some in the GOP pulling away from him, but some defending him. And I was seeing something from the state auditor there, and quoting Bible and saying that, even with Joseph and Mary was a teenager and Joseph was an adult. I'm thinking, wow, I mean, that's a tortured kind of defense for this. I mean,
we never know that, as stupid as an example as that is, I mean, I don't know a lot about the Bible, but they didn't even sleep together. That was the whole point of that story, you moron. Again, the atheist has to remind the Christian of how this thing plays out.
Yeah,
I'll give you that, John.
Like Roy Moore is like today, spotlight in the news, perverted Alabama politician, and this state auditor is like, hold my beer. I think I can beat him.
No, exactly. No, it's look. There's no defense. This may stick, particularly when you see so many of the GOP melting away from him right now.
Yeah. So we actually have a little bit of that here in this compilation that JR put together. You're going to see Richard Shelby and Jeff Flake responding to questions about these new allegations.
All right, let's.
If there isn't any shred of truth to these stories, he ought to step aside now.
Is he fit? Would he be fit to serve in the Senate if this was true?
No. If there's any shred of truth, he ought to step aside. I mean, just with regard to Roy Moore, those stories are appalling, just appalling.
But how do you know it's true or not?
Devastating, nasty story. If the revelations, if that's true, I don't believe there'd be any place for him in the U.S. Senate. Okay?
So in addition to them, you also have Mitch McConnell calling him to step down if it's true. So again, leaving themselves some wiggle room there. But John McCain said the allegations against Roy Moore are deeply disturbing and disqualifying. He should immediately step down and allow the people of Alabama to elect a candidate they can be proud of.
Okay.
So John McCain, perhaps the least sort of
use him as an example.
Yeah, you know, this kind of lends to what I was thinking when I saw the immediate refusal or rebuttal of him, which doesn't happen a lot, which is why it was a little bit surprising. So Richard Shelby, after he said the first parts of there, a follow-up question said, "So, do you think he should carry on and maybe go on and serve if he wins?" And he said, "Well, you know who I supported in the primary." It wasn't this guy. I mean, Luther Strange.
Sure.
So the point being, the guys that didn't want him because of his other political innings, they know how much of how many racist things he said. He backed the whole birtherism thing. And
I'm going to show
his
you reasons
homophobia
why he's
behavior.
not
So
racist.
all that they already know about, know how hard it's going to be to have this guy around. He's crazy.
Yeah.
So
I'll
they're
show you an
like,
article in a
let's
minute
hurry up and
about
say, let's
everything
get him out
about
for this reason because we didn't want him for the other reasons we'd have to defend him for.
Yeah.
That weren't particularly illegal, just deplorable.
Yeah.
Yeah, although, and again, it's good to see them actually coming out against him for the most part. And again, I'm going to have one or two that are pretty bad of people defending him, but they are coming out against him. But in the wake of the Access Hollywood tape, some prominent Republicans denounced Trump and now enthusiastically work to advance his agenda every single day. So these sorts of denunciations only go so far.
It is weird, by the way, Johnny, that politics is that one space that sort of you don't know which way it's going to fall. I mean, you know, show business, everybody's pulling movies and reshooting films, and guys are losing their jobs and are closing down studios and declaring bankruptcy at the first whiff of sexual harassment and certainly these rape allegations as well. But here, as you mentioned, the Access Hollywood tape, we end up with the President of the United States.
Yeah.
You know, it just,
There's
you're
still
not
no
sure
proof
how
he
much will
did,
stick.
neither did
I
Trump.
mean, JR makes a great point when he talks about
Saying
the fact
grab him by
that
the
maybe
pussy is not the same as sexual assault,
Roy
dude.
Moore, that is, he hasn't
Come
made a lot
on,
of
man.
friends along the way that may hurt him also.
Yeah, maybe. And I noticed one of the first things that came out about this, I think they actually tried to beat the Washington Post to publishing this. Somebody tipped them off, but Breitbart put an article as a part of several articles about that this is a hit job, basically, and they defended his relationships with most of the women, saying he's just being romantic and stuff like that. There's nothing immoral about, you know, habitually trying to date people who are 47% as old as you. Now they
I love that you did the percentage. That's
Thank
quite
you.
impressive.
I'm probably wrong. And then they got to the section with the 14-year-old, and they didn't even comment on that. They just linked to the Post section on it and then moved on to other stuff. And so...
yeah, the 14-year-old is indefensible.
It's indefensible. Yeah. And so this is the outlet that pushed the Pizzagate conspiracy, amongst others, was so concerned about pedophilia in Washington, now working, getting out as fast as they can to run interference for a guy who apparently was a serial pedophile back in the 70s.
So the reason that they think this is all politically motivated is because this is a card that they play a lot of times.
Yeah.
Let's just go ahead and bash anyone by any way we can, something completely embarrassing or even something that most people actually accept or other people have done in normal relationship situations. But let's just put that stuff out there and maybe destroy them. So when it's something that's actually really bad, they say they're out to destroy me. Everybody's out to get me. No one has been treated, I think this was this particular one, no one has been treated as badly as Roy Moore has. No politician in history, except your boy, the president, said the same thing already.
Exactly, yeah. At some point, there's only one who's treated well.
All right, so basically they're saying that because these allegations, he needs to step down, whether there's no proof. It's always that way of, you know, that you need to, that if the media says you're guilty, if someone says an allegation, that means it's true. I thought it was, you're innocent until proven guilty. If you're proven guilty, then you're not innocent. But I've already showed you. I'm going to show you again. This is straight from the Alabama newspaper. Okay? There's one of the accusers being the interpreter for Hillary Clinton. There she is with Joe Biden in 2012. On Facebook, Gibson showed a filter for a campaign rally for Moore's opponent, Doug Jones, in October, visited on his behalf by Biden. On October 15, Gibson showed a story about Moore and his comments that the massacre at Sandy Hook School occurred because Americans have forgotten God's law. God is love, not diverse bigotry, race. This is all bull crap. And now I'm going to give you some reasons why he's not racist and all this other stuff. Let me show you this. And I'm just getting used to this thing, so I'm just getting used to it. So if it takes long to load, bear with me, okay? So this is 5 reasons libertarians can support George Roy Moore. And this is what it says. Okay, this is the first one. Lee Corber, now a 78-year-old inmate at the Hallmark prison, petitioned the Alabama Supreme Court for a rate of challenging his sentence for life imprisonment without the possibility for parole for a non-violent crime involving marijuana. The court denied his petition. Moore dissented, calling the sentence excessive and unjustifiable. Moore was troubled by the testimony regarding the search of Booker's residence where investigators found marijuana plants, and one of the investigators testified that Booker's son, not Booker, consented to the search of Booker's home. Booker was not physically present when his son allegedly consented. Booker testified that when officers showed up at his house that he asked to see a search warrant, which they did not have. I'm not consenting to do a search, he claims they told him. Moore would have granted Booker's petition. I urge the legislative, he wrote in his dissent, to revisit the statutory sentencing scheme under which Booker was sentenced to determine whether it serves an appropriate purpose. Okay, I'm trying to find something. That's one reason for the going against the war on drugs. I'm trying to give you another one. That's the first one. He's against the war on drugs, gun rights. Okay. This is why he is, because of his stance on lesser federal government and getting those individuals out of jail for just marijuana plants. People don't want to talk about this. People don't want to talk about this because they really believe, they really do not want anti-establishment Republicans in. That's why your Ben Shapiro's and all these other people don't defend Republicans when something happens to them. When there's no evidence of this going on, they always cuck and just hide like this and don't do anything. Meanwhile, Bill Clinton, all these Hollywood people, John Spacey, Weinstein, there's actually proof and evidence, and many of them are admitting to this, but people are still defending them and praising them, even though there's no proof of Roy Moore. No proof whatsoever. Let me see if I can show you one more thing. But that's pretty much the gist of what I'm saying. But pretty much, if you look at this, the 5 reasons libertarians can support Judge Roy Moore, mainly with me, it's him rejecting the government stealing your stuff, even if you don't pay enough of your taxes or if you have a disagreement with them, and also with granting Booker's petition, who was a black person, and making sure that he did not get, was able to leave and not be sentenced for just having marijuana plants and not giving a life without parole sentence for that. So this is the Chad Factor getting out. Thank you.